Hello, Youest You, beloved listeners, communities. If you are new here, thank you for hanging today. And I'm so honored to have you here. This is going to be such a fantastic conversation. I'm already really excited. I feel like I'm with my soul brother, Dan Mangena, who is also a Sagittarius. Thank you very much. We love our Sages. So, all right, my friends, I want to let you know a little bit about Dan. First of all, he has an amazing accent. Yes. And for those of you who are from East London, then you'll be used to it. I personally could listen to you, Dan, all day. So I'm thrilled you're here. Thrilled you're here. Daniel Mangena is an international speaker. He's a best-selling author, a broadcaster, and coach. He is best known for his highly successful Micro to Millions program, being the author of Stepping Beyond Intention and his Do It with Dan and Beyond Success podcast. He is completely self-made. We're going to talk about that, Dan, and has spent decades perfecting his world-class coaching methodology. His mission statement: to spearhead an evolutionary uplift in universal consciousness by awakening people to the importance of their unique role and enabling them to manifest their dream life. That, my friend, I love that. That feels so expansive. I love what you are doing in the world, and I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here too. I'm excited. I know we've got some flip round the other way sort of conversation to happen too, which will be fun as well. But yeah, happy to be here.
I know. I was just, there's like all of these thoughts in my head. And I think one thing I'd said to everyone listening in before we started, I said, nothing is off limits, too woo, too out there. And Dan was like, all right, well then we can go down this rabbit hole, dimensions and consciousness. And I'm like, sweet, bring it. So this conversation, y'all, we don't even know where it's going to go yet, but it is going to be so fun. And as always, we bring in the higher intelligence with us and just know it'll be for the highest good. Yeah. I would love to start, this whole concept of being your Youest You is about, I believe, the courage to be authentic and to really follow your calling, your heart's desires. And would love to hear a little bit about your story. I mean, it could be way back when. You can tell as much of it as you like. But I think to claim, I know as a self-made, successful entrepreneur, there's a lot of listeners that are either budding entrepreneurs, full-time entrepreneurs, or just interested in, how to have more meaning and abundance in their life. And I think sharing your story, would love to start there and just hear, how did you get to where you are today?
Okay. Well, first and foremost, I'm going to say anybody that's thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, stop for a second at least and consider if it's what you really want. Entrepreneurship is not easy at all. And actually, one of the things that I love to remind people is that even this path of consciousness, this path of manifested life, it's not the shortcut. And one thing that I've noticed and witnessed as this stuff's gotten a bit more mainstream, particularly with The Secret, is you give a popcorn packaging to something and everyone thinks, oh, blah, blah, blah. I read The Secret. I'm manifest now. I'm going to be a coach. I'm going to teach people how to do this. It's not easy. This is actually the harder path. This is the harder way. I was raised quite conservative Christian, but one of the stories, the analogies that Jesus gave was, the wide, easy path and the short, the rocky, narrow path. This is the rocky, narrow path. Now, the summit that we reach when we do walk this path is worth it, but consider whether it's what you want to do, whether that's with entrepreneurship, with pursuing a consciously created existence versus just being reality trance, we call them snails, where you just sort of dot along waiting for things to happen. It's not the easy path at all.
Yeah, I think this is a good starting point. And I can say just from my own experience, starting a business from nothing, literally from nothing. I get it. It was definitely not the easy path. What were the key, what were the key desires or that deeper calling within you that had you decide to go down this path? And, I'm assuming it sounds like you started also, coming from from zilch, from zero, from nothing.
Yeah, there was no trust fund. There was no leg up. I've had a couple of people get upset about me using the phrase completely self-made. I wasn't saying that I did it all myself. I'm saying nobody gave me a leg up. That's sort of the direction that I go. So just to clarify that, in case anyone's like, who does he think he is? He didn't do anything himself. Yeah, I get that. I've actually never had I've had two real jobs. I've never been in corporate. I've never had a grown-up job.
Yeah.
I worked in a cinema when I was 15 for one summer. I met my two best friends, Nathan and Jamie. And I stayed because we got free ice cream and we got to watch movies before anybody else did. Those are great things I love, Ben and Jerry's and movies. And then when I was rebuilding my life, and this will make sense when we get to another part of the story, when I was 27, maybe 28, I worked in a call center for 6 months. And other than that, I've always worked for myself. I've always been an independent income earner. I made my first million when I was 19. I'd lost it by the time I was 20. Had made lots of money again by the age of 23 and lost it within a very short period as well. So I had a lot of pain on my journey to being where I am today, a lot of loss. But through that pain, through that loss was a betterment of self. I was a bit of an arrogant toe rag. I just recently recorded a TED talk a couple of weeks ago that should be up maybe by the time this interview's out. At the time of recording on December 6th, it could be out on YouTube this week, and actually speak about, that the growth that came from me going through the trying times, which empowered me to be a much nicer human. Yeah, I was an arrogant little toe rag who got a lot of success, couldn't get anything wrong, did get everything completely wrong twice, and then came back from battling suicidal ideation for a few years, rebuilt, worked at the call center, built another successful business, had an enlightened moment and walked away from that business to come and do what I do now. Got another 7-figure business, but doing something more meaningful now, something more fulfilling, something more purposeful. Now, not to say that there wasn't purpose to the things that came before, but now I'm definitely living my best life in terms of calling and meaning and purpose.
Wow, first of all, thank you for sharing. And I think it's so fascinating, the making the millions and then losing it and doing that twice. I mean, a lot of people would sort of be like, I'm out, see ya. Yeah. I'm gonna go find a stable job. And for you to be able to, it sounds like part of your journey, Dan, has been really digging into what brings you meaning and purpose, and shifting gears to kind of really do that now. I know what you're doing now, both with speaking and coaching, and all of the work it sounds like, even your book. Tell us a little bit about stepping beyond intention. What is that about? What does that mean?
So after losing everything the second time, and hitting that rock bottom, one of the things that has been a big part of my journey is learning not to be so obsessed with what I believe other people are thinking and saying, which is really funny because I'm going through another blast of that literally at this moment, that I'm got this paranoia that person's gossiping or whatever. But getting beyond that, because part and parcel of my decision that suicide was the only option that was left was that I didn't think I had anything more to contribute because of the belief that I had about what people thought and believed about me, having failed so drastically. And so fast forward to today, a big part of that healing and growth led to me being able to sort of look at my ideas about what's real and what's not, and be able to find the truth for me, versus being led by an ego-driven disconnect to the truth of what's actually happening. And if we do go down the rabbit hole on that, there's a whole thing of consciousness playing its role in terms of, well, if we believe deeply enough that people are saying that we can actually create the reality when people are, or at least connect to the quantum potential, but that's what they're doing. But that's another conversation. But it has been a great healing journey through the losses and the wins and this and that. But certainly for me, and this is a big one also for people that are looking at entrepreneurship, because you mentioned, for example, that I could have gone back to a job. Fun fact: the majority of people who are now monetarily successful have lost everything on average twice. So
Mm.
that's a statistic.
Yeah. Wow.
Right. And I did actually want to give up.
Mm.
I had said to myself, I'm going to give up. And I didn't realize how much I'd done. That was the woman I was with at the time, when I was like, oh, so I got this job at the call center, as I said, and they were like, oh, you're really good. We'd love to put you on the management track or whatever. And I reported it back, and Heish was like, if you think I've had your back all these years for you to turn around and get a job at a call center, then you're not the man I thought you were. And that was actually the big awakening. So having the people that you've got around you, having clarity of what you're doing, and being open to being wrong and letting go of your ideas about what other people are saying are definitely big top tips for people that are thinking about going any path of creating something worth looking at.
Oh, say that again, Dan. Those are powerful. If you remember them, to repeat that again, I think that, or whatever comes up this time, but I think that's really powerful. Number one, not worrying what others think.
Yeah, not worrying, not holding true to what we believe other people are saying.
Mm-hmm.
Not getting so certain about what we don't know, which I think is Wayne Dyer that said, when there are two outcomes, both of which may or may not be true, why are you going to put your energy into the one that you don't actually want? Right. So there's that one. Who have you got around you?
Yeah.
Big one. Being open to being wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Big one. And I think there was one more, but it escapes me. Oh, having clarity on your vision, being clear about what you're moving towards.
Clarity and vision. Yeah. We could like do conversations on each of these. And I think, one of the things is surrounding who you're surrounding yourself with. Is an important one. I know it was Jim Rohn who said, you're the sum of the 5 people that you're
closest to.
Yeah. And, we were talking earlier before starting the recording about your just being around all of these, sounds like a very high vibrational location and attitudes. And it sounds like, for you to have gone to a place where you were considering ending your life, what helped you to turn that corner? I mean, I'm hoping, goodness, anyone listening, I hope, my prayer is that no one gets to that place. Certainly, I know I've been in a space of like, I don't want to do this anymore. And it felt like I just can't. What helped you to turn your ship around? What helped you to rebuild yourself?
And that actually goes back to the question that you asked that I completely shot over and did a tangent on. And that's beyond intention. It saved me accidentally.
Yeah.
Here's the crazy thing. And again, I mentioned this in my TED. I didn't wake up one day and say, I don't want to end my life anymore. I accidentally reprogrammed myself out of suicide. What actually happened is that I looked around at the options that were available to me in terms of suicide. In the UK, guns aren't that readily available. And I was in a situation where I couldn't even get my hand on a gun anyway, even if they were available in the country that I was in. The idea of waking up in a hospital bed with a pumped stomach and people feeling sorry for me as the loser who couldn't even end his own life didn't appeal to me. Having a permanent reminder on my wrist of trying to cut that and that not working didn't appeal to me. And so I actually sat down and I said to myself, the only way that I'm going to pull this suicide off is if I buck up my ideas, get over being a loser and actually pull it off successfully. And so my going back over everything that I've been reading and studying up until that point that had led me to think arrogantly that I'd cracked the code of the universe, I wanted to apply to pulling off my suicide successfully. And actually the obsession, being consumed for hours a day, doing nothing but, I wasn't watching films, I wasn't watching TV, I was just reading books. I learned to transliterate Hebrew and Arabic, and I was going to ancient text. I was learning the science of neuroscience. I was studying new texts that were coming out, going into ancient wisdom, because I had to understand who had tricked me into the parts of my model that I was using that hadn't worked, so that I could fix it and pull off my suicide. But you can't spend years pummeling your brain with positive content and not a negative outcome. It just doesn't really happen. And that journey, and looking back years later, realizing, oh my God, I don't want to kill myself anymore. What happened? I guess we're doing life now. And then backtracking over the steps I'd gone through. That's what my book, Stepping Beyond Intention, is about. The 4 steps that I roughly migrated through, that I've since then been able to replicate and apply specifically to outcomes that I want. And now tens of thousands of people around the world, through the books, through the podcasts, through the social media content, through the speaking, through our programs, now get to do that too. That's what the book's all about.
And the 4 steps, what are those 4 steps in stepping beyond intentions?
Accept, clear, gratitude, and listen. Accept, clear, gratitude, and listen. And I'll give you the one-liner for each, and then we can dive into them as you feel fit. But accept that you are the author and creator of your life. Nobody else is responsible for any outcome in your life. Now, are there conditions outside of our direct control? Yes, but we still have dominion over which environment we're in. Possible doesn't mean it's easy. Again, I'm not saying that any of this is easy. The other thing as well is that even if we want to start looking at blaming other people for things, or portioning responsibility, the thing that underpins that whole idea is something I call common denominator theory. If you've got 20 relationships in your life, if you want to change all 20 in one go, what's the most effective thing to do? Change you. You're the common denominator. If you change you, the substance of all of those relationships has to change to some degree. Will they all change completely? No. Will they all change exactly as you want them to? No. But if you apply a level of intentionality as to what you're contributing to those relationships, and then even drop the relationships that don't serve you anyway, guess what you can do? You can have maybe 5 or 10 relationships, but 5 or 10 that serve you. But the change came from you. We are the most logical place to start. So when we start with that responsibility and accepting it, our world can change. So that's number 1. Clearing is about understanding that the only place that real change can happen is now. The only place that real change can happen is now. And yet, as humans, we spend so much of our time outside of now, trapped in the trauma of the past, stories of the past, anxiety stories, or even excitement about the future. Our consciousness isn't present here where it can apply the responsibility, the power that we've taken on. We're caught up in the other stuff. We're caught up in other people's business. We're caught up in government conspiracies. We're caught up in fear mongering, right? We're caught up in anger. We're caught up in sadness. We're caught up in this, but we're not present. And so step 2 is all about the physical act of bringing ourselves and our consciousness back to a place of power, which is now. Step 3, gratitude. Really interestingly, my original model was called vision, purpose, faith, gratitude. So you had a clear vision, you acted with purpose every day, you had unwavering faith, and then you lived life with an attitude of gratitude. In that original model that failed, gratitude came after the fact. One of the biggest light bulb moments for me was that gratitude doesn't have to wait. And in fact, true power comes from applying gratitude in advance, because gratitude is the most powerful embodiment of expectation of an outcome. So when I'm in a place of gratitude before an outcome shows up, I'm actually saying, I'm committed so much to this showing up. If we want to get quantum, I'm so committed to pulling in this from the field of infinite possibilities that I can embody it now, and that actually facilitates it coming into our life. In fact, everything that shows up in our life is the result of expectation. Everything. We want to go into the neuroscience about this. The neural pathways of an outcome get fired before we experience the outcome. And even the way that we can observe and experience an outcome is completely predicated on the wiring that we've got neurologically. So we can actually cut off outcomes, even if they do show up, because we're not wired into it. Step 4, listen, is really about being human and having compassion with ourselves, because we're not going to be switched on all the time. We're not going to be able to accept every outcome. Sometimes the trauma is going to kick in. Sometimes the anxiety is going to kick in. Sometimes the expectation is going to be a bit kooky. But if we can honor that and give ourselves space to be human, we can always come back on course and get to the outcome that we want for our lives. And that's beyond intention.
Beautiful. Wow. I love it. The accepting you are the author, you're the creator of your life, which is completely, yes, check. Yes, definitely. Like, it's a big one when you get that too. I love that. Being clear. The only place that you can change really is in the present. So not being too focused on the future, which I know many of us can be, not just the past. Love this way of looking at gratitude, which is really you're setting yourself up for success, because you're setting up a thank you for an expectation that hasn't happened yet, which to me also pulls on faith.
Yeah.
As well,
I mean, when we go into the science of this, from a quantum perspective, and guys, I'm not a quantum physicist, and I'm a little bit irked by people who don't understand the quantum mechanics, kind of spoon it like they do. So, spoiler alert, I'm not. However, I have spent 2 decades exploring these concepts and sitting with actual quantum physicists, and I'm preparing to do a doctorate now, exploring some of these ideas too. So I'm not speaking as an expert. I'm speaking to someone who's lived it and seen it in the people's lives. But I do advocate actually listening to this kind of material from people who do actually know what they're talking about. That being said, time is a construct that doesn't actually exist in quote unquote real terms. Everything is actually happening in a space or a pocket that we call now, and all outcomes are available in that pocket that we call now. So we're not really grateful for something in advance. We're grateful for something that's already here, and we're making it a part of our constructed timeline that we experience as our life.
Love it. Oh, love it. I'm glad you tweaked that. I love what you just said. Because it's very powerful. And and this is where I think, I know a lot of my listeners, I've had Hal Elrod on here a few times. He's a good friend of mine, the author of The Miracle Morning, and he does the whole savers and, visualization, which Joe Dispenza, a lot of folks are into. I think it was like Einstein, who's like, the imagination, your mind's eye and imagination is more powerful than anything else. So when we can visualize and say thank you and feel that is here, I know what you're saying is true. And it's a great reminder because it does take, like you said, unwavering faith, I believe, with it, especially until you have enough evidence and you can see, oh yeah, this works.
Exactly.
And then listening, which I love these steps. I'm curious, Dan, because you talked about, I know one of your things that you talked about is the experience of making millions and losing it. And I get asked this a lot, and I'm curious, what kind of mindset, what kind of belief system is necessary to call in, 7 figures, millions, and to really, to have the capacity for it, the worthiness, the openness. I think there's a lot under it. I'm curious, maybe you can talk a little bit about what you believe is necessary to really attract that, bring that in, and to be, because I get that question all the time. And I know that's one of the, who doesn't, I mean, maybe there's some who may not be interested in.
And do you know, the funny thing is that in the work that we do with my Micro to Millions program, that's exactly what we do. We take people from 0 all the way to 1.6 million and beyond.
Amazing.
The power behind that program is that once you're in the program, you're not allowed to put another penny into anything. You have to start on 0. We take you from 0, and so you get to watch that grow. And one of the things that we've noticed is that people get to a certain figure and they're like, I'm actually good here. I don't need any more. And you'd be surprised at what those numbers are. We've seen people get to 6 figures a month. They're like, I'm actually cool. I don't really need any more help. I can kind of keep this going. And we've had people that have got to the 1.6 and like, I want more. One of our guys just got 20 million backing from the bank. So he'll be liquid. I mean, he was already in our 6-figure club, but he just got literally a month ago, his bank backing him with 20 million to go and do real estate deals. Came out of the blue. So he'll be conservatively at $1 million, $2 million a year, in very short order. But every single one of these people, and this is what's so interesting about the work I have been doing up until this time, and the work I'm stepping into a little bit more now, which is people that have already got success that want to wrap it in more of they've got financial success and they want to wrap it in what we call the 7-figure life. So it's not just a 7-figure bank account. And that's that most of the people that came without the worthiness. They came in without a bank account to back it. We've had people come in that struggled to pay for the program at first, managed to make it work. Some of them, we gave them scholarships up to a certain point, and then they went and created. But every single one of them understood a simple fact: we get what we are. So it's not a mindset that makes you able to hold in 7 figures. It's being a person whose mindset is open to the experience of 7 figures. And it sounds the same, but there's a very, very subtle difference, because I'm not putting on the clothes, I'm not putting on the costume of, I am the person wearing. Right? And so this is what I've seen with people that create and lose. So for example, me, I didn't have the embodiment of, I had the unwavering belief, but I didn't have the vibrational frequency of it. I didn't have the experience of the habits and behaviors that were required. I was young. I was like 20 years old, 19, 20 years old. I didn't have any of that. And so the second time, it wasn't that I didn't have it necessarily. I didn't have the mindset of humility to allow myself to be supported, to be able to operate at that level. Yeah. So it went. Whereas now I think this year I've spent 350,000 on my personal development. I did 150 in October alone on my personal development. I've always got a coach. I've always got healing that I'm doing. I continue to keep pushing the edge on ensuring that I'm being held and supported. And that allows me to operate at a level whereby there is no stress or hustle in creating. It's the natural evolution of who I am. I have to get up every morning. I'm a millionaire, I'm a millionaire, I'm a millionaire, or anything. I don't have to do some special chant. I just did the work on creating a state of being within myself that aligns to that being the natural byproduct of who I am.
Okay, let's talk about, I love that, Dan. I want to talk about this state of being and this who do you have to be, this embodiment, this vibrational frequency, habits, behaviors, because I know many who all ranges, but certainly might be, for many different reasons, to have more freedom, to be able to invest, to be able to give back in a bigger way. I mean, obviously more resources, more options, more freedom. Talk to us about what you've seen, what you believe. What do we need? What are the ingredients? What kind of state of being, do you see really matches the frequency of holding 7 figures, 8 figures? What are those habits? I think that would be helpful. And I often get these audio little downloads. I'm hearing, what is it? Tell us, like, give us the state of being, list it out, my friend. Everyone listening, because I know there's very few I know who wouldn't be interested in that. So yeah, what do you think?
First and foremost, I reject the idea of the cookie cutter approach.
Yes, I got you.
Okay. We don't do cookie cutters in the work that we do. We have a formulaic backbone that sits underneath what we do, and we teach our guys to adapt that to them through what we call money DNA. So money DNA is where your natural flow is with money. So we say, okay, here's how to map your money DNA. You can use that then to adapt this formula, this framework, for you to be able to go and create what you want financially. Okay. One of the reasons why I focus on money is why I know people get a bit mad. Why are you only thinking about money? Money is not the most important thing, but it's the easiest medium of exchange for expressing more freedom in the life that you live. And also it's tangible. So when people come and do my money game challenge, for example, and we have them go through a certain process to manifest $10, I don't need $10. Yeah, but if you can follow this process and you can make $10 come out of nowhere, what happens when you recognize and believe that there's no difference between $10 and $10 million apart from your belief system about the difference in size? But also, if it doesn't work and you're using this formula, we can check if you've done these steps to the formula. And if you have done it and it doesn't work, then I'm full of it. But we've got thousands of people now who have done it, and we see that when you follow the steps, it does actually show up or more. And one of the key things that sits underneath, like I said, that formula is what I call the flow funnel. The flow funnel, is it mine? No, but as it's formulated, it is. It's the result of my 21 years of going through this information, but it's really dissecting ancient wisdom, which is recognizing that we're not one-dimensional. So there are people that are listening to this that like, I want to be a millionaire. They've tried they did the thing, they made the funnel, right? They paid 20 grand for the top funnel from the top funnel person in the world, or they did the drop shipping, they bought crypto, but then bought it at the top or whatever the thing is. They did real estate, everything people tell them, and it didn't work out. And that's because physical manifestation, if not matched with an inner environment that matches, is not going to click into place. You can do all of the things. You can work 50 hours a day.
Say that again. That's important. The inner, seriously, I want everyone to hear that, because it's inner, your
inner has to match.
Yep. Inner has to match.
Because at the end of the day, by the time we get to physically manifested reality, all the creation's already done.
Yeah.
All that we're experiencing in physical reality is the expression of what we've already created based on our internal environment.
Yeah.
If we want to talk about the mind operates at 10,000 to 10 million times the speed of the conscious mind. So those unconscious thoughts that are creating the environment that you're living in, by the time you've had one conscious thought about what you want, you've had 10,000 that could be what you don't want. When we look at spirit, which is faster than the speed of light, it's like that has to be clicked in. And so the flow funnel really recognizes that 2/3 of the game is an inner game. It's your vibrational alignment, which is just most easily expresses your emotional state. And you'll have people try and sell your courses on Instagram about your vibe and your field. How do you feel? And do those feelings match the outcome that you want? And are you prepared to do the work of breaking your addiction to having those emotional states that don't even match what you want? Because if not, nothing's going to change, no matter what the funnel is, what the strategy is, how many retreats that you've gone to, how many hours a day you do your yoga. If you haven't addressed that misalignment between your emotional state and the emotional state that you personally cognitively connect with the outcome. And this is the thing again with this cookie cutter. Oh, joy and rapture and sexy, those might not be your things. What's yours?
Oh, you're asking me?
Is yours? If you
Oh,
want to share.
I was like, if you're listening, like fill in the blank. I mean,
Fill in the blank.
Yeah. You were asking the question, what is your, what has you feel connected to your soul, to your.
Here's the easiest way to do it. And this is,
Yeah.
I love to just like what Dan is to just cut this short. And here's what we do with the intentionality at the beginning.
Yeah.
Get clear on what you want and then close your eyes. And I've got a visualization on this. I think we're putting it on YouTube. I can't remember if it's up yet. But all that you do is go into your mind's eye. Imagine that you're standing in front of the version of you that already has what you want. Yeah. And then just ask them, how do you feel right now? And see what comes back.
Yeah. I mean, I can tell you right now, because I've seen it million. It's just, it's aligned and purposeful and joyful and free. And it's just fun. You know, I think of, fun is usually the word for me. A Sagittarius, I love fun.
There you go. And the thing is, you don't need a laundry list, like 3, 4, 5 words that you can remember. So my 5 words that guide my ideal life principle right now are freedom, expansion, love, meaning, and pride. Those 5 words are my guiding principle. If anything comes into my sphere that's not adding to one of those things, I don't do it. If anything, person, place, or thing starts to pull away from my ability to be in those things, I ruthlessly audit my life to keep them out. So everyone that's like, yeah, do you know what, guys, you know, Julian, Dan, really want to do this thing. I said, take a second, pause the podcast, close your eyes, take a few deep breaths, get centered, and close your eyes and just imagine you're standing in front of the version of you that already has that outcome, whether it's love, health in your body, financial abundance, whatever, and just say, how do you feel? And just see what happens. Yeah. Listen for 3 or 4 emotions, 3 or 4 words of how they feel. And then your job is to pollute your life with as many triggers to those emotions. That's your emotional state set. The unconscious mind listens to what's going on with the emotions. If you're constantly pummeling yourself with those emotions through your environment, through your inputs, through the conversations you're having, what you're doing, then, I mean, we're unconscious much as 97% of the time, I think it is, right? So if that unconscious, which is running the show most of the time, is positively polluted with those outcomes, then guess what? The little bit of time that you're out there operating consciously, it's going to follow on from that also. And this is how I saved my life. Nobody can tell me this isn't true now, because I came from being completely committed to ending my life, not even noticing the shift away to choosing life. And it happened because the inputs changed my emotional state, and my emotional state no longer matched the outcome that I'd chosen before. It matched a new one of choosing life. And that's what ended up happening, even without my involvement.
Yeah. Powerful. Well, and I'm even, you know, I the thing that comes up too, as I'm listening, I know for me, and I know people listening in tend to get the, you know, high achieving, ambitious. For me, I have to watch workaholism, overworking. If you're loving what you do, are you
exactly
get into what you're doing? And one of the things I realized was when I do that, it's like I'm while I feel like I'm purposeful and I'm adding value, I'm not allowing time for joy and fun. And that's so important, because that vibration, first of all, is so connected to freedom, to love. And we've talked about this here before, but sometimes that can look like I literally will stop midday. I have markers, I have stickers, like I have sparkle, whatever it is. And I'm like, I need to, or I'll pick a Oracle card. I'll do something very fun and joyful for me. That's for me, you know, and what I've seen is it shifts everything. I mean, and of course what follows, because it's our inner state. So I'm just thinking about what you're saying and how important it is to embody this, and that it's important to probably look at how are you, what is your emotional state, you know, on a typical day. And like you said, pollute or, you know, completely infuse yourself.
Bombard
with those feelings. Yeah. What, tell us more. So you were saying you want to really look at how do you feel? 2/3 of this is inner. What else do you notice? I'm thinking of the $10 game. Maybe you can just share briefly. How does the $10 game work for those who are
listening? That's actually the topic of, it's money game is the actual real version. This is like the on the shelf version. The real version is about that small. It's like a really small pocketbook. But the money game is literally this model applied to manifesting money. And then it shows you how to take this model and then apply it to your health and apply it to your career, apply it to your relationships, whatever, because it's exactly the same thing. It's number one, breaking down the bigger goal into little steps, what I call micro shifting. But number two, recognizing that the physical action is just the point of receivership. The physical action isn't where the creation happens. The creation happens in terms of what you're pulling in with your emotional state and what you're projecting out in terms of the expectation that you have at the unconscious level. When those two match a clear intention, you can have the outcome, and then you're just putting your hands out to receive. And so what we do is we take people through a particular process that we've created called the money game, where we have you play with. In the challenge, we do it with $10, but we tell people to start with $1. Yeah. So you go out there and there's a particular script that you write down on this little piece of paper, get into a space of gratitude with 5 points of gratitude, and then you forget about it. You leave it, and then you watch it show up. And then you go through a particular cycle. In the full game, there are 15 steps over 3 rounds, 5 steps in each, that teach you how to set an edge, expand where your edge is, and then solidify it and going through this process. And then you can just keep running through it until, this is what I use to create opportunities in my business, clients for my business, because I'm not going out there hustling, trying to make something happen. I'm connecting with the version of me that's already achieved an outcome. Yeah. I then ensure that my inputs, my environment support that, and then I let the magic work.
You said something really important, and I think I want to reiterate this for everyone, which is if what you're doing does not match, and you talked about your 5 those states of being, yes, the freedom, expansion, meaning, love, and pride, I think is what you said. If they don't meet that and match that, yeah, you don't, I'm like, I hope I got it. You don't do it. And what I'm hearing is it's a real protection and honoring of your inner world, your space, but also what feeds you and has you feel most connected to this way of being. So that, if we go to quantum, what is going to be showing itself to you is going to be matching that. And this is the thing you got clear. And I love that. And I think just asking everyone listening to think about, like you said, your future self, you're meeting him or her, them, and really feeling into how do you feel in that future? Yeah.
And like I said, we do have a visualization around it, and goodness, I don't think it's up yet, but it will. If they keep an eye on the YouTube channel, I haven't actually given Duncan the instruction to get it up, but it's called the quantum visualization, the quantum mirror exercise, where we actually take you through a little hypnotic trance and then drop you into state and then have you go through a process of engaging with the magic mirror where the person comes out, and then you actually integrate with them as well at the quantum level. It's kind of cool stuff. But just to get kick started with this, all that they need to do is to just meet the version of this and just ask.
Yeah.
And it might seem like a silly game at first, but play with it. Just imagine how it would feel if this was real, and just play with it and see what happens.
Yeah, it doesn't sound silly.
Small.
Yeah.
Start with something small. Something that, so I would suggest starting with something that's different enough for you to know that it's happened, but also regular enough for there not to be too much charge around it happening.
Great. That's so well said.
Yeah.
Dan, this has been such a wonderful conversation. I feel like before we wrap, is there anything either in the process around, you talk about being the match to millions or manifesting, is there anything that you want to add, or what I usually call, for those listening now, I call them heart flares, where your heart is like, I have something I want to say. So either is there something that we didn't get to yet that you want to share, or just in general?
Don't take it so seriously.
Oh, good.
None of us are getting out of this thing alive.
Yeah.
None of us. The millions that you're thinking about, you can't take it anywhere. And if you're just gathering it up just for the sake of gathering it up and not for it to support you having an experience that you want to have, what's the point? So is money the most important thing? No. Is money a great thing to support the most important things? Yes. But at the end of the day, if you're not being lit up and feeling sexy, yummy, delicious about what you're doing, what was the point? Have that as your guiding principle.
Awesome. Yeah. I really hear the bottom line here too, is really getting what's important. And, like you said, love, meaning those attributes as things, and that can come from seeing your future self. But to remember, I love that, not to take yourself so seriously. Well, I definitely need to hear that reminder.
On one of your words, anyway, that should be your thing.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I just want to say a huge thank you. I think it's so inspiring just hearing your story. And last question would be, what is the Youest You? What does that mean to you? What does that look like today? And if you were to meet your future self, who is the Youest You? Who is that in the future, Dan? Maybe share it with us.
That's the version of me that expresses through the heart without the egoic filter of the self.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Yeah, that's what comes up in response to that.
Awesome. Goodness. That is like yes to that, and yes to as many of us having that as possible. I think we'll see a big shift here.
Amazing.
Yes. Oh, thank you so much. What an honor to have you, and just
Well, thank
appreciate
you,
you, the work you're doing, your heart, all of it.
Likewise.